Good evening, and thank you for slipping into Sleepy Kitchen with me. I'm so glad you've made it here with me. Tonight, we're drifting through vegetables, the crisp, earthy, bright things that hold their shape in your hand and carry their own quiet signals. The squeak of a fresh green bean, the clean bite of cucumber, the peppery scent of arugula, the dry snap of a celery rib. Start close with that simple variety of textures and flavors, and the view widens on its own. To roots storing energy underground, leaves turning sunlight into sugars, stems lifting water, flowers waiting to open, and people across centuries selecting for sweetness, bitterness, heat, and color. And in one tidy twist of nature, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage are all the same species, just different cultivars shaped by human preference. If you'd like more nights like this, you can subscribe or simply return whenever you need a soft place for your thoughts to settle. For now, relax your forehead, drop your shoulders, and listen like you're letting the day drift past. Let's begin. Carrots were not always tied to bright orange because cultivated carrots have long come in purple, yellow, red, and pale forms, with orange becoming widely popular later through selective breeding and shifting seed fashion. Many food historians point to growers in the Netherlands as important in spreading orange varieties, though the change happened gradually across regions as farmers saved seeds from the roots they liked best. The useful detail is that carrot color comes from pigments, and pigments can nudge flavor and cooking, with deeper colors sometimes tasting a bit earthier or more robust, and holding their color differently when heated. Purple carrots, for example, get much of their color from the same pigment family that colors many berries and grapes, and that color can tint a cooking liquid as it loosens. Potatoes store, but because a healthy tuber is designed to wait, holding starch underground until the plant is ready to grow again. Which is one reason potatoes can feel so filling even in small portions. That waiting period, called dormancy, helps explain why potatoes became a steady staple in places where fresh produce is seasonal and winters are long, because one harvest can stretch into many meals. In practical terms, cool, dark, and well-ventilated storage slows the potato's urge to wake up, reduces moisture loss, and helps the tuber stay firm while the starch stays where you want it. A potato is essentially a stored-up stem, and when sprouts start appearing, it is usually the plant spending that stored energy to begin the next growth cycle. Onions make many people tear up because cutting them breaks their cells and releases sulfur compounds that quickly transform into an irritating gas near the eyes, a built-in defense that works even after harvest. The tears are usually a simple rinse reflex, the body's way of washing the eye surface when it feels a sting, not a measure of toughness or skill. Because the reaction begins the moment the cells are opened, the effect can feel sudden, then settle as the gas disperses into the air and the cut surfaces dry slightly. It is a clear reminder that vegetables are living chemistry, even before heat touches them or any seasoning is added. Bell peppers and many hot peppers belong to the same species, Capsicum annuum, but sweet peppers were bred for little to no capsaicin, the compound that creates the burning sensation people call heat. Capsaicin is produced most strongly in the pale inner ribs and nearby tissue that supports the seeds, which is why those areas matter most in spicy varieties and why they are often the hottest bite. With bell peppers, the plant still makes the same pepper shape and the same bright grassy aroma family, but generations of selection push the heat lane down while keeping the crisp texture and clean sweetness. This shared family background is why a sweet pepper can still taste related to a spicy one, even without the burn. As peppers ripen, many shift from green to red, orange, or yellow as sugars rise and flavors round out. Broccoli is often described as a human invention because it was shaped by selective breeding from wild cabbage relatives into the tight green flowering heads people recognize, turning a plant habit into a marketable shape. In plain terms, farmers took a plant that already existed and favored the traits that made the flower buds dense, tender, and edible, generation after generation, until the plant reliably repeated those traits. This is why broccoli sits in the same extended family as kale, cabbage, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. Many of them different forms of Brassica oleracea, each one highlighting a different edible part of a closely related plant. Broccoli's tight head is a cluster of flower buds, and if you let it keep growing, it will open into small yellow blossoms. That is why timing matters in cooking, because overcooking can push the flavor toward strong sulfur notes. Spinach contains oxalic acid, a natural compound that can bind to minerals like calcium, which is one reason spinach is not as straightforward a calcium source as it might look on paper. This does not make spinach a problem food. It simply means the body does not absorb every mineral the same way from every ingredient, and that is normal across plants. Cooking can reduce oxalate levels somewhat, and it also collapses the leaf into a smaller volume, which is why cooked spinach can feel much denser than a raw pile, and why the same bowl can shrink dramatically. Oxalate is also part of spinach's slightly astringent edge, a small reminder that chemistry lives in flavor as well as nutrition. Garlic's signature compound, allicin, is not fully present inside an intact clove. It is created when garlic is cut or crushed and enzymes meet the right sulfur containing molecules that were stored in separate compartments. That separation is a kind of safety design for the plant, and it means preparation flips a built-in switch that changes what garlic releases even before heat does anything. That is why whole cloves can taste mild and rounded, while chopped garlic can taste sharper and more immediate, even when they come from the same bulb. Heat changes garlic again, softening sharp edges and turning some of its flavors sweeter and more rounded. With those foundations in place, it becomes easier to keep moving by noticing what each plant part is trying to store and protect. Kale is one of the leafy greens that can handle real cold, and after a frost, it often tastes a little sweeter than it did in warmer weather. The plant responds to chilly nights by increasing sugars in its leaves, which helps protect cells as temperatures dip toward freezing. Those sugars act a little like natural antifreeze, lowering the chance of damage when water inside the leaf tries to form sharp crystals. The shift does not turn kale into candy, but it can soften the sharp edge some people notice in raw leaves and make the green flavor feel rounder. You tend to notice it most in young, tender leaves, where a small rise in sweetness is easier to taste. It is a quiet reminder that weather can change flavor before any cooking begins, the way a season can season a leaf. Even the same bed can taste different later. Brussels sprouts do not form as a single head in the ground. They grow as tight buds lined up along a tall central stalk, each one sitting where a leaf attaches, like a row of small cabbages climbing upward. A mature stalk can carry dozens, and because the buds develop in slightly different spots, sprouts from the same plant can vary a little. Some will be tighter, some a touch looser, depending on sun, temperature, and position on the stem. That structure is also why sprouts feel so dense for their size, since each one is made of many compressed leaves. In markets, you sometimes see them sold still on the stalk, which makes the plant look like a vertical bouquet of buds. Once you picture that stalk, the sprouts stop feeling mysterious. They are simply buds arranged in a line. And that picture prepares you for their cabbage cousins. Cabbage can look like one simple ball, yet its size range is wide, from small heads around a pound to larger ones that reach several pounds, and a few varieties can get close to about 9 pounds. Much of that weight is water held inside layered leaves, which is why cabbage can feel heavy for its volume, like a tightly packed stack of damp pages. The tight head is the design. Outer leaves shield inner leaves, and the compact layering slows drying and bruising. That density also helps cabbage keep its crispness because the inner leaves are protected from air and light for much of their life. In storage, cool conditions keep those layers calm, so cabbage often lasts longer than many tender greens. That patient-keeping quality is one reason cabbage appears in everyday meals, waiting quietly for soup, slaw, or a quick pan. A vegetable that waits patiently. Bok choy suits quick cooking, partly because it grows quickly, with many common types reaching harvest size in about 6 to 8 weeks, and sometimes faster in warm, steady growing. Fast growth matters because it allows repeated planting cycles, and it also tends to produce leaves and stalks that have not had time to become woody or stringy. Bok choy carries 2 textures in one plant. It has crisp, pale stalks below and softer leaves above, so a single bunch can feel layered without extra ingredients. When heat arrives, the leaves soften first, while the stalks stay snappy a bit longer, creating contrast with very little effort. In soups, the stalks can stay pleasantly crisp, even as the leaves relax into the broth. If you notice that pairing, you start seeing it in many greens. Slice the ribs and leaves separately, and the timing feels simple when dinner is hurried. Collard greens belong to the broad cabbage family, but their leaves are thicker and flatter than many delicate greens. In the field, collards are often more heat-tolerant than some close relatives, which helps explain why they became a dependable crop in warmer regions and long growing seasons. That sturdiness shows up in cooking, because the leaves hold their structure longer instead of collapsing immediately into thin strands. The thickness also gives them more surface for flavors to cling to, especially when they are cooked gently for a longer time. Even the veins are substantial, which contributes to the steady chew people expect from collards. The result is a green that stays present on the plate instead of disappearing. When you want a leafy vegetable with backbone, collards often answer. They also remind you that some leaves are built for patience, and a little time can turn firmness into tenderness. Arugula tastes peppery because it carries mustard family compounds that turn sharper when the leaf is broken. One science name for some of the stored compounds is glucosinolates, a word you do not need to memorize. When the leaf is cut or chewed, enzymes meet those stores and create more pungent molecules. The effect is a clean bite similar to mustard and radish, which can read as peppery, radish-like, or gently bitter depending on the variety. Younger arugula tends to taste brighter and less intense, while older leaves can lean more bitter as the plant concentrates those compounds. Heat usually softens the sharpest notes, which is why arugula can shift from lively to mellow with only a little cooking. It is another reminder that flavor can begin with a simple tear of a leaf. If you add it at the end of cooking, it keeps a fresh edge still. Swiss chard is easy to recognize because its stems and veins can come in bold colors, including white, yellow, pink, and deep red, while the leaves stay broadly green. The color comes from pigments in the stalk tissue, and it does not automatically mean the taste is dramatically different from one color to another. What changes more reliably is texture. The leaf portion cooks down quickly, while the thicker ribs behave more like a tender stem. If you treat chard as two textures, leafy and ribbed, it becomes less confusing because you are cooking a leaf and a stem together. The ribs can be sliced and cooked until they turn silky, while the leaf portion needs only enough heat to soften. Those ribs can add gentle crunch even when the leaves have relaxed. Chard is forgiving in soups and skillets, and it teaches the habit of matching heat to structure. Mustard greens connect directly to prepared mustard because mustard seeds and mustard greens often come from closely related plants in the same family. Prepared mustard is made from ground seeds, while mustard greens are the leaves, and both can carry a similar sharpness because the same family chemistry shows up in both parts. That pungent bite is not capsaicin heat. It is a different kind of sharpness that can feel clean and nose-tingling, closer to radish than chili. The bite can seem stronger when the leaves are very fresh and the cells are newly broken, because that is when the sharp compounds are most active. This is why mustard greens can smell brighter after slicing, as aroma rises quickly from the cut surface. Cooking tends to soften the bite, turning bold leaves calmer and more rounded. A quick pan can keep some sparkle without letting the sharpness take over. Watercress stands out among common greens because it naturally grows in or near running water, and its leaves are adapted to stay crisp in that wet environment. That habitat helps explain its fresh, assertive flavor, which many people describe as a gentle pepperiness rather than a neutral lettuce taste. Some nutrient scoring systems place watercress very high for nutrient density, meaning it offers a lot of vitamins and minerals for relatively few calories, though the exact methods vary. Because it is tender and high in water, it can wilt quickly once harvested, so it is often used soon after purchase. A small handful can change the character of a salad or sandwich without needing much else, and it can make a bowl of soup taste more awake. From these water-loving leaves, it feels natural to move toward vegetables that store their strength underground and wait, quietly, like sleeping roots. Beets get their deep reds and soft golden tones from pigments called betalains, and those pigments are vivid enough to leave a mark. They are concentrated enough that a small slice can color a pot of water, the way a single drop of dye changes a whole glass. That intensity is part of what makes beets feel so present on the plate, even when they are cooked simply and served with nothing more than salt. In some people, eating beets can tint urine pink or red for a short time, an effect often called beeturia, and it is typically harmless. It varies by person and by how much beet was eaten, and the color can look intense because the pigments are so strong. The calm takeaway is simple. Beet color can travel through digestion and still be visible, so a sudden tint is often just pigment showing itself before it fades again. Sweet potatoes are not close relatives of regular potatoes. Despite the shared name, and the way both can sit in the same comfort food slot. Regular potatoes are tubers from the nightshade family, while sweet potatoes are storage roots from a different plant family altogether, closer to morning glories than to tomatoes or peppers. That split helps explain why they feel so different in texture and flavor. Sweet potatoes often carry more natural sugars and a different starch balance, so they tend to taste sweeter when heated and soften into a smoother, creamier bite. The name overlap is more about how people use them than what they are as plants. Once you notice that, the category starts to feel clearer. Two roots can fill the same role on the plate while coming from very different plant stories. Turnips are among the quicker root crops, and many common varieties can reach a useful size in roughly 6 to 8 weeks under good growing conditions. Fast maturity matters because it means turnips can fit into short seasons and cool weather windows without months of waiting. Their flavor also shifts as the root grows. Younger turnips are usually milder and crisper, with a clean bite that can feel almost juicy. Very large, older turnips can develop a stronger edge and a firmer, more assertive texture. That is mostly time showing up as taste, and it is one reason turnips can feel gentle or bold depending on when they were harvested. Once you start thinking in timelines, root vegetables begin to sort themselves by patience. Radishes stretch from tiny round types about the size of a marble to large varieties that can weigh a pound or more, including long white daikon and thick watermelon-style radishes with bright interiors. Even when shapes change, the familiar radish bite comes from mustard family chemistry that becomes sharper when the cells are broken by slicing or chewing. Smaller radishes often taste crisp and punchy, while larger ones can be milder and more watery, especially after gentle heat. Size can also change how a radish feels in the mouth, from snappy and peppery to broad, juicy, and calm. Heat usually softens the sharpest notes, which is why roasted or simmered radishes can taste rounder than raw ones. The range is a reminder that one vegetable name can cover many personalities, all built from the same basic pattern. Parsnips tend to taste sweeter after they have been exposed to cold weather, because the plant can shift some stored starch into sugars as temperatures drop. Those sugars help protect the living root in the soil, making the cells more resistant to cold damage and keeping energy available through winter conditions. Many growers harvest parsnips after a few frosts for this reason, because the sweetness becomes more noticeable and the flavor turns rounder, sometimes with a gentle nutty note. The change is not a dramatic transformation. It is a quiet adjustment that makes the parsnip taste more like itself. Cold, in that sense, acts like a slow, finishing touch the plant performs on its own before any pan is warmed. Rutabaga is a natural cross between a turnip and a cabbage relative, which is why it can taste like a calmer, denser cousin to both. You can often recognize it by its size, and by the way, many rutabagas have a beige lower half with a purplish top where sunlight reaches the root near the soil line. Compared with a turnip, rutabaga is usually larger and a bit sweeter, with a firmer texture that holds up well when cooked for longer. That firmness comes from the root structure and moisture balance, which helps it stay intact instead of dissolving into softness. If turnips feel quick and bright, rutabagas often feel steadier and deeper, like the same family speaking in a lower voice. Jicama often stays crisp even after cooking, which surprises people who expect all underground vegetables to soften the way a potato does. It holds a lot of water, and its cell structure is firm in a way that resists turning fluffy, so the texture can remain snappy rather than collapsing. It also contains carbohydrates that behave differently from simple starch, which helps explain why it does not readily become creamy or mashable. In everyday terms, jicama is closer to an apple-like crunch than to a starchy tuber, even when warmed. That crispness is the whole point of the root. Once you know it, you stop waiting for it to behave like a potato, and you start using it for brightness and crunch instead. Cassava asks for respect because raw cassava contains naturally occurring compounds that can be harmful if the root is handled incorrectly. The plant stores these compounds as a defense, and the important detail is that people learned how to meet that defense with steady knowledge. Many food cultures developed reliable processing traditions that reduce the risk to safe levels, which is why cassava has supported daily diets in many regions for a long time. In some situations, those compounds can contribute to cyanide-related effects, which is why cassava is best approached through trusted products and established guidance rather than improvisation. The calm message is that cassava is not a forbidden ingredient. It is a respected staple that depends on careful, tested preparation. It is a good example of how plant defenses and human knowledge can meet in a practical balance that stays steady across generations. Yams and sweet potatoes are often mixed up in everyday language, especially in the United States, but true yams come from a different plant family than sweet potatoes. Many true yams belong to the genus Dioscorea, a name you do not need to remember, and they can be larger, starchier, and drier than the orange sweet potatoes that are sometimes sold under the yam label. Sweet potatoes, by contrast, belong to the morning glory family, and they often cook into a softer, sweeter texture that deepens with heat. The confusion is mostly about naming habits and labels. Once you separate the words from the plants, the grocery aisle feels less foggy. From these underground stores, it becomes natural to look up toward vegetables that grow on vines and carry their seasons in thick skins. Zucchini is technically a fruit in botanical terms because it develops from a flower and carries seeds, even though most of us treat it as a vegetable in everyday cooking. That mismatch is common in the squash family, where the everyday vegetable is often the plant's fruit harvested young, before the seeds harden and the rind turns tough. Zucchini is a classic summer squash, meaning it is picked while the skin is still thin and the interior is still tender. The practical consequence is that zucchini has very high water content, so it softens quickly and can release liquid as it heats, which explains why it rarely behaves like a dry, starchy vegetable. If it grows very large, the interior can turn spongier and the seeds become more noticeable, which is the fruit maturing in plain sight. When you think of zucchini as a young, tender fruit, its quick cooking nature starts to make simple sense. Butternut squash stores well because its thick, protective skin is built to guard the flesh and seeds, and that same barrier slows moisture loss after harvest. As a winter squash, it is usually allowed to mature on the vine until the rind hardens and the interior starches fully develop, which makes it less delicate than summer squash. Inside, the flesh is dense and relatively low in free water, so it stays firm instead of turning watery as it sits in storage. A hard rind also helps resist small nicks and slows drying, which buys time even when storage conditions are not perfect. A simple way to remember it is that butternut carries its own container in the rind, and the drier interior keeps that container from collapsing. That long keeping quality is one reason butternut shows up as a steady cold season staple, when fresh greens are less dependable. Pumpkins are native to the Americas, and evidence indicates people were cultivating and using them for food thousands of years before modern agriculture. The plant's spreading vines and durable fruits fit well with seasonal harvest because a mature pumpkin can be carried and stored more easily than tender vegetables that wilt quickly. Pumpkin flesh is high in water with a gentle sweetness, while the seeds offer concentrated fat and protein, which means the plant provides more than one edible component in a single fruit. In everyday terms, it is a vegetable that comes with its own built-in bonus, a separate ingredient tucked inside the cavity. Because the word pumpkin is sometimes used for several related winter squashes in markets, pumpkin flavor and texture can vary from one fruit to another. That mix of soft flesh and useful seeds helps explain why pumpkins became such a familiar part of autumn food traditions. Acorn squash gets its name from its shape because its ribbed, rounded body and pointed end resemble a large acorn. It is often smaller than many winter squashes, which makes it feel naturally portioned, and the ribbing hints at how it divides into curved segments. The skin can range from deep green to mottled patterns with orange or cream, but the recognizable acorn silhouette stays consistent across varieties. The flavor is usually mildly sweet and nutty, with a texture that becomes tender yet still holds its shape rather than turning stringy. Its central seed cavity is compact compared with very large squashes, so a small acorn squash can still feel generous in usable flesh. If butternut feels smooth and uniform, acorn squash often feels more segmented and structured, which can make it easy to recognize on the plate. Spaghetti squash is famous because, when cooked, its flesh separates into long strands that resemble thin pasta. That effect comes from the way the flesh is organized, with cell walls and fibers that loosen into ribbons instead of collapsing into a smooth mash. The strands naturally run along the length of the squash, which is why the noodle look appears when the interior breaks into long lines rather than short cubes. Compared with butternut or pumpkin, spaghetti squash is usually mild in flavor, so the main appeal is structure more than sweetness. It also holds a lot of moisture in those strands, so it can taste clean and light rather than dense, even when the serving looks generous. Even so, the strands tend to stay distinct, so sauces cling instead of disappearing. You see it as a squash that offers texture first. It becomes easier to understand why people choose it for a different kind of comfort. Yellow summer squash and zucchini are the same species, even though they can look like two different vegetables at first glance. Both are forms of Cucurbita pepo, and the differences mostly come from selected traits like skin color, shape, and how quickly the fruit grows to a typical market size. Yellow squash is often more tapered with a bulbous end, while zucchini is usually more evenly cylindrical, but both share thin skins and tender interiors when harvested young. Because they share the same species, they also share many behaviors, including high moisture, mild flavor, and a tendency to soften quickly with heat. You can even see the family resemblance in their blossoms, since both plants produce large edible flowers that look and feel similar. Knowing they are close relatives makes substitutions feel calmer, because the swap usually changes color and shape more than the basic cooking behavior. Kabocha squash is often loved for its dense flesh, which can taste naturally sweet and chestnut-like when cooked, even without added sugar. It is sometimes described as a Japanese-style winter squash, and many common types have a dark green rind with subtle striping or a matte finish that looks almost painted. Inside, the flesh is often deep yellow to orange, a color that usually signals more carotenoid pigments and a richer, rounder squash flavor. Compared with watery squashes, kabocha can feel dry in a pleasant way, giving it a rich, compact texture that holds together instead of turning into wet softness. In many cases, the rind becomes tender enough to eat once softened, though thickness and tenderness vary by variety and maturity. That combination of sweetness and density is why kabocha often reads as especially hearty for its size. Delicata squash is often considered beginner-friendly among winter squashes because its skin is thin and frequently treated as edible once cooked. The thin rind usually means it cooks faster than thick skin types, and it also means there is less barrier between you and the flesh, which can make the whole vegetable feel more approachable. Many delicata squashes have pale cream skin with green stripes, and the shape is often small and uniform, like a short, ridged cylinder. The seed cavity tends to be narrow, which can make the ratio of flesh to seeds feel generous even in a small squash. The flavor is gently sweet, and the texture is tender without being watery, sitting between summer squash softness and the heavier density of some storage squashes. If a thick rind feels like armor, delicata feels more like a light jacket, still protective, but easy to live with. Chayote is a mild squash used widely in many Latin American and Caribbean kitchens, and it can be enjoyed both raw and cooked. Its crispness comes from high water content and a firm cell structure, so it can stay snappy in fresh preparations and still hold its shape when warmed. The fruit is often pear-shaped with a slightly wrinkled skin, and that simple shape makes it easy to recognize even when the name is unfamiliar. The flavor is subtle, closer to cucumber or young zucchini than to sweet winter squash, which makes it a quiet carrier for other ingredients instead of a dominant centerpiece. Chayote also has a single large seed in the center, which is one reason its interior feels simple and clean compared with very seedy squashes. From these vine-grown squashes, it helps to turn toward the vegetables that build flavor as aroma, the ones that can perfume a whole meal with just a small amount. Leeks are often milder than common onions because the part we eat is mostly layered leaf base, not a fully formed, tightly packed bulb. The plant never swells into a big storage globe the way many onions do, so the flavor tends to stay softer and less sharp. Growers commonly mound soil around the plant as it rises, keeping 8 to 12 inches of the lower shaft pale, since less light means less green chlorophyll and a more tender, sweeter texture in that protected section. The darker green leaves are still edible, but they are usually firmer and more fibrous, with flat, strap-like layers that can feel sturdy on the tongue. They also carry a more assertive, greener onion flavor, so many people save them for slow-simmered broths or long cooking, where their strength can mellow and their fibers can relax. Most of the time, the white and light green sections are the main tender portion, and that pale to green gradient becomes a simple map of flavor and texture as you move upward. Shallots are smaller than standard onions, and they typically grow as clusters of connected bulbs instead of one single globe, almost like a little bouquet of cloves under one papery skin. The bulbs are often more oval than round, and each one is compact and layered tightly. Because of that, shallots often taste more concentrated, with clear onion character, plus a faint garlic-like note that tends to show up most when they are raw or only lightly warmed. Their smaller size also means less water and less bulk in each piece, so the flavor can feel focused. It is like an onion turned down in volume, but sharpened in detail. The pieces also disappear quickly into the background of a dish, even when used in small amounts, leaving depth without taking up much space. That is why shallots are often described as refined alliums, and a cluster of bulbs can last through several meals. Scallions and green onions are essentially the same idea, an onion harvested before the bulb fully develops, so the whole plant stays slim and tender from tip to base. The white base is a tiny developing bulb and stem, and it carries the strongest onion flavor. The green tops taste fresher and more grassy, and those tops are often hollow like a soft green straw, sometimes sold with fine white roots still attached. Because the tissues are thin, scallions soften quickly with heat, yet the green portion can also stay crisp when used raw. If the plant were left to mature, it would eventually swell into a fuller bulb and a tougher leaf. Thinking of scallions as an early-stage onion keeps their behavior predictable, and it sets up a gentle contrast with aromatics whose flavor feels more like perfume than sulfur. Fennel tastes like licorice or anise because it contains an aromatic compound called anethole. You do not need to remember the name. The useful point is that the same sweet scented note appears in anise and in fennel seeds, which is why fennel can smell sweet even when the vegetable itself is not sugary. Aroma and sweetness do not always travel together, and the nose often leads the experience. The edible fennel bulb is not a true bulb like an onion. It is a swollen bundle of leaf bases, layered and juicy, which is why it can be sliced thin and still hold a clean crunch with a celery-like snap. When fennel is warmed, its sharper top notes often soften, and its natural sugars become more noticeable. So the same vegetable can read as bright when raw and rounder when cooked, with the anise note drifting from sharp to gentle. Even a small slice can perfume a pan without shouting. Ginger is a rhizome, an underground stem that grows horizontally and sends out roots and shoots from its nodes, which is why it looks knobby, jointed, and slightly branched. The segments are like links in a chain, and the small eyes on the surface are places where new growth can begin, a stem habit rather than a true root habit. That is why ginger can be divided naturally at its joints. Rhizomes are built for storage and spreading, and that design helps explain why ginger can hold so much fragrance in a compact piece, concentrating aromatic oils and pungent compounds in a form meant to survive underground through changing seasons. As ginger matures, its skin tends to thicken, and its interior can become more fibrous, a simple sign of the stem building structure over time. It sits in the same underground stem category as turmeric, another rhizome spice that carries color and aroma in a quietly sturdy body. Chives are among the smallest commonly used members of the onion family, and their thin, hollow leaves are meant to be used in short lengths rather than heavy pieces. Because each leaf is slender and airy, often no thicker than a piece of dry spaghetti, the flavor is delicate, a light onion note without the deeper sulfur punch that can come from larger alliums. The green taste stays soft rather than sharp, and a few strands can season a dish without changing its whole direction. Chives also lose their fresh edge with prolonged heat, since the thin tubes wilt fast and the aroma drifts away. They bruise easily if handled roughly, and they are usually sold in small bunches because a little goes far. That quiet efficiency points towards seasonal alliums that are harder to find. Ramps are wild leeks that grow in moist spring woodlands in parts of North America, often under leaf litter before the forest canopy fully closes. And they are known for a brief harvest window early in the season. Many plants produce just 2 broad leaves and a small bulb, and that simple shape helps explain why a bunch can look modest even though the flavor is bold. The taste often lands somewhere between leek and garlic, with a fresh green lift that feels bright on top of the deeper allium base. Because ramps are foraged and slow to replace if over-harvested, they tend to appear as a limited seasonal ingredient rather than an everyday staple. Availability can vary sharply by region and year, sometimes disappearing from markets for long stretches. That short, specific season is part of what makes ramps memorable, a quick sign that spring has arrived and then moved on. Horseradish becomes powerfully pungent only when it is grated or cut, because breaking the cells allows stored components to mix and rapidly form the sharp vapor that rises into the nose. In an intact root, those components stay separated, so a whole piece is much quieter until it is damaged. And that same volatility is why prepared horseradish can fade in strength over time as its most pungent notes escape into the air. Unlike chili heat, horseradish heat is a mustard family sharpness that hits quickly and clears quickly, often felt more in the sinuses than on the tongue. That is why a small amount can feel surprisingly big. The same kind of quick, nose-bright reaction shows up in prepared mustard and in wasabi-style pastes. Horseradish is a good example of flavor that is created by cutting, not simply revealed. Kohlrabi looks like a root, but the round bulb is actually a swollen stem that grows above ground, with leaves shooting out from the sides like spokes on a wheel, and it belongs to the broader cabbage family. The skin can be pale green or purple, yet the interior is usually pale and crisp. And because it is stem tissue, the texture is closer to broccoli stalk or cabbage core than to a starchy root. Smaller kohlrabi tends to be more tender, while very large ones can develop a woodier center as the plant builds more fiber with age, and thicker outer layers may need to be removed to reach the sweetest crunch. From these aromatic stems and bulbs, it feels natural to keep moving through vegetables by noticing which plant part you are actually eating, and what that part was built to store. Green beans are usually picked while the pod is still young and tender, before the seeds inside have fully matured. If the plant is left to finish its cycle, those seeds swell and dry for storage, and the pod builds more fiber and becomes tougher and more stringy. That timing is why a fresh green bean tends to snap cleanly and taste juicy, while a mature bean plant is aiming for dry seeds that can keep for months. In a simple way, green bean describes a harvest stage more than a single fixed ingredient, and that early harvest logic carries gently into peas. When the pod is young, the walls still hold moisture, and the fibers have not tightened into tough threads. An older pod that bends instead of snapping is the same story. The plant is redirecting its energy towards seed storage, and the pod is no longer trying to be our vegetable. Snow peas are meant to be eaten pod and all, because they are bred to have flat, thin walls that stay tender. The peas inside are usually small and not fully bulging, which keeps the pod from stretching thick or forming tough seams. A clear, visual anchor is the shape. Snow peas look like small green envelopes, wide and flat, with only a gentle outline of peas inside. Their flavor is mild and fresh, and the main pleasure is the soft crunch of the whole pod rather than the pea itself. Because the walls are thin, they soften quickly, so they are often treated as a quick, last-minute addition. Their flat shape means heat reaches the center quickly, so they cook through in moments. If they sit too long, they can lose that crisp bite, so they are often treated as a quick, last-minute addition. Sugar snap peas were developed so the pod would be thick, sweet, and crisp, while still staying tender enough to eat whole. Many descriptions note that snap peas were bred by combining pea types that favored edible pods with pea types that favored plumper peas, aiming for a middle that gives you both in one bite. Unlike snow peas, snap peas have rounder pods because the peas inside are allowed to swell without making the pod leathery. That balance is why a snap pea often bites like a tiny cucumber, yet still tastes clearly like peas, and it points us toward beans valued for a softer, creamier bite. That thicker wall holds its crunch longer, which is part of why snap peas feel satisfying raw as well as lightly cooked. You can hear the bite, then taste sweetness right behind it. Lima beans are often called butter beans in parts of the United States, and the nickname points to their smooth, creamy texture when cooked. Compared with many small beans, a lima bean is broad and slightly flattened, and that shape tends to soften into a gentle bite that feels velvety rather than crumbly. The flavor is mild and starchy, which is why lima beans take on surrounding seasonings easily without fighting for attention. Different markets may use one name more than the other, and some people reserve butter bean for larger varieties, but the creamy texture is the steady clue either way. When they cook, starches relax into a smoothness that can feel almost buttery, especially in soups and stews. Because the flavor is mild, small changes in seasoning show up clearly. Edamame are soybeans harvested while they are still green and tender, before they dry down into the hard beans used for shelf-stable soy foods. A typical pod holds 2 or 3 beans, and the fuzzy pod is usually treated as a container, while the beans inside are the main bite. Picking soy at this stage keeps the flavor fresh and grassy, with a light sweetness that changes as the bean matures and concentrates. As soybeans dry, they become harder and denser, and generally need longer cooking to soften. So, edamame is the short green chapter of the same bean. The name hints at timing, because it is less about a different plant and more about a different moment. The green beans inside are softer than dried soybeans, and they taste lighter because flavors have not fully concentrated yet. Fava beans have been cultivated around the Mediterranean and parts of the Middle East since ancient times, and they are still valued because they are hearty and filling. The beans are large, often closer to the size of a thumbnail than a pea, so a small handful can feel substantial. Many favas have a thicker outer skin that can taste tough or slightly bitter, which is why people often focus on the tender interior, where the flavor is nutty and green. In many places, they are also called broad beans, a plain name that matches their wide, flattened shape. That outer skin protects the seed, and it can be the difference between a firm bite and a creamy center. When you peel it away, the interior feels surprisingly tender for such a large bean. Okra thickens liquids because it releases mucilage, a natural gel-like substance that becomes noticeable when okra is cut and heated. The texture can look slippery, but it functions like a built-in thickener, the way a small amount of starch can make a broth feel more silky. Some dishes rely on that body on purpose, using okra to give stews a fuller mouthfeel without needing added flour or cream. Because the mucilage comes from inside the pod, cut surfaces tend to release more of it than intact pods do, so slicing usually means more thickening power. Some cooks keep the pods larger when they want less of the gel, and others cut it small when they want the liquid to thicken. Either way, okra is shaping how the broth moves across the tongue. Yard-long beans can grow to impressive lengths, sometimes roughly 2 to 3 feet, though they are usually harvested much shorter for the best tenderness. Even at around a foot long, one bean can look like a green ribbon coiled in a bag, which makes the name feel literal and easy to remember. Their flavor stays in the familiar green bean lane, mild and vegetal, and the main difference is the long, flexible pod that slices into generous pieces. In some markets, they are also called asparagus beans, a nickname that fits their long shape and leads neatly into beans grown on climbing vines. Length is mostly a visual difference, but it affects prep, because long pods can be cut into even bites that cook at the same pace. The texture stays closer to green beans than to peas, with a familiar chew. Runner beans are known for colorful blossoms, often bright red or bicolored, and for pods that can become rougher and tougher as they mature. When picked young, the pods can be pleasant to eat, but as they age, they build more fiber, which is why older pods are often better treated as beans inside rather than as tender pods. The plant's climbing habit is part of its identity, and it is commonly grown on supports, so the vines can rise and the flowers can form in clear view. Runner beans quietly show the same pattern again. A pod becomes more fibrous as it matures, and the plant shifts attention to the seeds. The flowers make the plant easy to spot, and the climbing habit lets it turn vertical space into food. As the pods age, the fibrous walls tell you the plant is moving on. That gradual toughening is the same quiet signal we saw in green beans. A vegetable becomes a seed case. Eggplant flesh can brown quickly after it is cut because enzymes in the exposed cells react with oxygen and create darker pigments on the surface. It is the same broad kind of reaction that can turn a sliced apple tan, so the change can feel familiar even if the vegetable is new. Some people hear the word oxidation and picture rust, but here it simply means air-meeting plant compounds on a wet surface. The shift can begin within minutes because the cut face is moist and has a lot of contact with air, like a damp sponge with many tiny openings. Browning can look patchy, with darker edges and lighter centers, because different parts of the flesh hold slightly different levels of those compounds. The useful point is that browning is usually cosmetic for most home cooking, a sign that the surface is aging, not a sudden safety warning. Once heat arrives, the color story changes again as the flesh softens, and it makes room for tomatoes, another nightshade fruit that behaves differently depending on size. Cherry tomatoes often taste sweeter than large slicing tomatoes because many varieties pack their sugars and acids into a small bite with less watery dilution. A simple comparison is juice concentrate versus a tall glass of water. Both can start from the same fruit, yet one tastes louder because there is less volume softening it. Their small size also means a higher skin-to-flesh ratio, and much of a tomato's aroma rides near the skin, which can make the flavor feel vivid and complete. Sweetness in tomatoes is really a balance, because acidity shapes brightness and makes sugars feel clearer. Many cherry types are bred with snacking in mind, so they aim for that sweet, clean pop. Bigger tomatoes can also be sweet, especially certain varieties, but the experience is often more about juiciness and softness than intensity. That small, bright sweetness pairs nicely with another fruiting vegetable that arrives wrapped in paper. Tomatillos come wearing a papery husk, a dry wrapper that looks like a lantern shade and forms around the fruit as it grows. Inside that husk, the skin often feels slightly tacky because of a natural coating that helps protect the fruit and shed moisture and dust. The calm takeaway is that the husk and the sticky feel are normal plant packaging, not a sign of spoilage or mishandling. As tomatillos mature, the husk often fills out and can split open a little as the fruit swells, which is simply the wrapper reaching its limit. The wrapper also makes tomatillos easy to identify even when they are mixed among other green produce, because few common items come with their own paper jacket. Once you notice that little husk, it becomes easier to follow how ripeness changes peppers, too. Poblano peppers are usually mild when green, and when they are allowed to ripen to red, they often taste fruitier and deeper, with heat that can edge upward but still tends to remain gentle. Ripening changes more than color. Sugars rise, aromas round out, and the pepper's grassy edge softens as it moves toward full maturity. Red poblanos can be less common in everyday stores because many are harvested green for a steady, mild flavor and a familiar look. In many markets, a dried ripe poblano is sold as an ancho chile, a clear example of one pepper gaining a new identity as it changes form. Heat levels can still vary from pepper to pepper, so ripeness is a trend, not a guarantee. That variability becomes even more noticeable in a pepper famous for occasional surprises. Shishito peppers are known for being mostly mild, yet every so often one arrives with an unexpected kick, because heat levels can vary from fruit to fruit even on the same plant. People sometimes repeat a rough rule like about 1 in 10, but the real rate can be higher or lower, so it is better thought of as an occasional lottery than a fixed promise. Capsaicin is produced most strongly in specific inner tissues, and small differences in development and growing conditions can change how much ends up in a particular pod. Even within a mild variety, that means a few peppers may concentrate more heat than their neighbors. The result is a gentle pepper that still keeps a little mystery in the mix. From that flicker of surprise, it feels natural to move to a nightshade that stays firm and tidy in small, round shapes. Thai eggplant is typically small, round, and firm, often green with pale striping, though some varieties lean white or light green. Because the fruits are compact and the flesh can be denser than the large purple globe eggplants common in many American supermarkets, Thai eggplant often holds its shape more readily in liquids instead of melting into softness right away. The skin can be a bit more resilient as well, which helps pieces stay intact even as the interior relaxes. Smaller eggplants also tend to have less airy, sponge-like space inside, so they can feel tighter and cleaner when bitten. The flavor can be slightly bitter or grassy, a steady reminder that not all eggplant is meant to taste mild. That sturdiness points toward another husked cousin, one that leans sweet rather than savory. Ground cherries are close relatives of tomatillos, and they also grow inside a papery husk, but their ripe flavor tends to land in a sweet, fruity range rather than a tart, savory one. Many taste like a gentle mix of pineapple and tomato, sometimes with a hint of mango, like perfume, sweet enough to feel dessert adjacent while still carrying a small tang. As they ripen, the husk often dries and loosens, so the fruit feels like a little wrapped marble that separates easily from its paper shell. Names can vary by region, but the easiest clue is still the husk, a soft paper lantern around a small golden fruit. That loose wrapper is a quiet ripeness cue, like a note the plant leaves behind. From sweet husks, it is an easy step back to peppers, where the skin can show a different kind of growing story. Jalapeno peppers sometimes develop pale lines or corky streaks on the skin as they grow, and those marks are often linked to rapid expansion and minor stresses the fruit experienced on the plant. The lines can look like tiny stretch marks, which is a helpful visual because the pepper skin is stretching as the interior fills out and the surface toughens in places. Corking often appears as fine netting or pale scars near the shoulders, and it can show up on other peppers too, though jalapenos are a common example. Some people associate heavier corking with more heat, but heat still varies widely from pepper to pepper, so the marks are better read as a growth story than a guarantee. Even so, the skin reminds you that peppers record their lives in small surface details. That brings us to a pepper whose very name can be a little flexible. Banana peppers can be sweet and mild or gently hot depending on the variety, which is why the same long curved shape can appear in both soft, tangy contexts and spicier ones. Their pale yellow color makes them easy to recognize, but the common name does not promise one fixed heat level the way a more specific chili name often does. You may even see labels like sweet banana and hot banana, which is a simple reminder that the category contains more than one personality. In some places, banana peppers are also confused with peppers like pepperoncini, which adds to the naming fog even when the flavors and heat are not identical. It helps to treat banana pepper as a general lane, then let the specific variety speak for itself. After these fruiting vegetables, it feels calm to look next at the vegetables where the stalk and the shoot are the main bite. Asparagus spears are young shoots that rise from an underground crown, and each spring, the plant can send up new spears for weeks. Because a spear can grow several inches in a day when conditions are right, timing matters, and the same field can look different from one morning to the next. Thicker spears are not automatically tougher or better, since thickness mostly reflects the age and vigor of the crown. Tenderness is more about freshness and about how quickly the spear was cooled after harvest. Asparagus is also one of the vegetables whose flavor changes quickly with time, because its natural sugars gradually shift after picking. That clean sweetness is often strongest when it is truly fresh, and it can fade into a greener taste as hours pass. Once you notice asparagus as a fast-growing shoot, it is easier to recognize other stem vegetables that are prized for crispness. If a spear sits warm for long, the tip can loosen and the base can turn more fibrous, so freshness shows up in texture as well as flavor. Rhubarb is eaten for its stalks, not its leaves, and that simple division matters. The leaves contain high levels of oxalic acid and other compounds, so they are best left off the plate, while the stalk is the familiar ingredient. The edible stalks are firm and watery, with a sharp tartness that can taste almost citrus, like even though there is no citrus involved. Color can range from pale green to deep red, but the shade is not a perfect sweetness indicator, since variety and growing conditions influence both color and flavor. A thick stalk often carries more usable flesh, yet it can still be tender if it was harvested at the right moment. Rhubarb is a clear example of a plant where one part is a staple and another part is best left alone, which sets up a flower bud built from many layers. Artichokes are not vegetables in the root or leaf sense. They are unopened flower buds from a thistle-like plant. What you eat is mostly the tender base of each bract and the soft heart at the center, while the fuzzy choke inside is the flower structure that would become inedible if the bud fully opened. A single artichoke can feel heavy for its size because it is densely layered, like a tightly packed stack of stiff petals protecting the heart. The flavor is mild and slightly nutty, and the texture shifts from firm outer layers to a soft, buttery center as you get closer to the heart. Seeing an artichoke as a bud makes the layers feel logical, and it leads naturally to an ingredient harvested from a plant's inner core. Hearts of palm are cut from the tender inner core of certain palm species, which is why the texture can feel smooth and crisp at the same time. They are pale, cylindrical, and lightly sweet, often compared to a gentle mix of artichoke heart and mild asparagus, but with less bitterness. Because the edible portion is the plant's growing center, the yield per plant can be small, which is why hearts of palm have long been treated as a specialty ingredient rather than an everyday staple. Many modern products come from cultivated palms chosen for more sustainable harvesting, so the label can matter if you care about how the ingredient was produced. The core idea is simple. Hearts of palm taste delicate because they come from new growth, and that delicacy points toward another shoot that is widely eaten only after proper preparation. Bamboo shoots are the young sprouts of bamboo, and they are eaten while still tender, before the fibers harden into the woody structure bamboo is known for. Fresh bamboo shoots contain naturally occurring compounds that can be irritating or unsafe if eaten raw, which is why they are traditionally cooked and processed before serving. Canned bamboo shoots have already been treated, so they tend to be milder and more ready to use, while fresh shoots can be more aromatic and crisp. In everyday terms, canned shoots are the convenient chapter, and fresh shoots are the brighter chapter that asks for careful, established handling. The flavor is mild and slightly sweet, with a clean, watery crunch that stays pleasant even in hot dishes. Bamboo shoots are a good reminder that shoot vegetables often taste gentle because they are young, and it makes the next vegetable, a swollen storage base, feel more intuitive. In soups and stir-fries, that crunch can stay lively, giving a dish structure without needing flour, extra starch, or much else. Celeriac, also called celery root, is not the root of common celery in a simple sense. It is the swollen base of a celery-type plant bred to store energy in a round, knobby bulb. The rough exterior can look muddy or strange, but inside the flesh is pale and firm, with a clear celery aroma backed by a potato-like starchiness. That combination is why celeriac can feel both fresh and grounding at once, like a vegetable that brings perfume and body in the same bite. The bulb can be about the size of a grapefruit or larger, and its dense structure helps it keep well compared with tender stalk celery. Once you understand celeriac as a storage base rather than a delicate stalk, it becomes easier to meet another stem vegetable that looks like celery's larger, wilder cousin. Cardoon looks like oversized celery, yet it is closely related to the artichoke, and the edible part is the thick leaf stalk rather than the leaf blade. The stalks are broad, ribbed, and often pale, and they can be fibrous, which is why cardoon is typically valued after cooking softens it and gives those fibers time to relax. The flavor can be gently bitter and earthy, with an artichoke-like note that makes sense once you know the family connection. Because the ribs are substantial, cardoon often behaves more like a vegetable meant to hold shape than one meant to disappear, and it can carry sauces and broths well. This idea of thick stalks and ribs leads naturally to a spring vegetable that appears for a short window and looks like a curled green question mark. Fiddlehead ferns are young coiled fronds harvested when they are still tightly curled, before they unfurl into full fern leaves. Their season is usually brief, often only a few weeks in spring, which is one reason they feel special and regional rather than constant and predictable. The taste is often described as green and grassy, somewhere between asparagus and spinach, with a firm snap that can soften into tenderness. Because some ferns can cause illness if eaten raw or undercooked, reputable sellers and food safety guidance emphasize proper cooking rather than treating fiddleheads like a casual raw vegetable. The calm takeaway is to approach fiddleheads as a traditional ingredient that rewards careful handling, and that care pairs well with a final root that is long, slender, and famously earthy. When they are handled well, they taste spring-like, more curious than intense, and they fade gently again. Burdock root, often called gobo in Japanese cooking, is a long, thin root that can reach well over a foot in length, with a brown skin and a crisp, earthy interior. It contains a lot of fiber, including inulin, which can give it a faint natural sweetness and a satisfying, steady chew rather than a quick crunch. When burdock is cut, its surface can darken as it meets air, a common plant reaction that shows up in many roots and does not necessarily mean anything is wrong. The flavor is mild, woodsy, and grounded, and it is often used because it stays present even when simmered, adding a gentle backbone rather than a bright top note. From burdock's steady earthiness, it becomes easy to keep moving into vegetables that travel well, store well, and wait patiently for the moment you need them. Daikon radish is a large white radish that stays crisp and refreshing because it holds a lot of water in firm, tightly packed cells, almost like a crunchy sponge that refuses to collapse. One root can be as long as a forearm and often weigh a couple of pounds, with a blunt, tapered shape that makes it look like a pale baton. Yet the flavor is usually gentler than small red radishes, with a clean bite that fades quickly instead of lingering. That mildness is exactly why it travels so well. It can be sliced into coins for crunch, grated into a snowy mound, served pickled, or warmed until tender, and it still tends to taste clear rather than aggressive. I use daikon as a reminder that crunch can be calm, and it makes a smooth bridge into softer cabbages and greens, where texture turns quieter and more leaf-like. Napa cabbage is built for tenderness, with pale leaves wrapped around a thick, juicy core, and that structure is why it feels softer than many round cabbages. A typical head is longer than it is wide, almost football-shaped, and the outer leaves act like a wrapper that protects the inner layers the way a paper sleeve protects a stack of napkins. The ribs are wide and watery, like crisp lettuce stems, while the leafy tips are thin, so one head can offer both crunch and silkiness depending on which part you use. The inner core often tastes faintly sweet, a small payoff for all that protected growth. I think of Napa as an invitation into lighter greens because the leaves hold more air and water than dense cabbage, so they collapse into a bowl quickly and quietly instead of holding a rigid crunch for long. Mizuna is a Japanese mustard green with feathery leaves, and its quiet trick is that a delicate shape can still bring a clear peppery note. The leaves can look like a soft feather duster or frilled parsley, which makes the green seem gentle, yet the flavor carries that mustard family spark you can notice at the back of the tongue. It belongs to the same broad plant family that gives mustard and arugula their clean bite, so the taste can feel lively even when the leaves look airy and soft. Mizuna can brighten a salad, then melt into a warm soup or hot pot in moments. And that quick shift from crisp to tender helps me appreciate vegetables that keep their structure in hot liquid. It is a small reminder that shape and flavor do not always match, and that is part of the fun in a calm produce aisle. Lotus root is recognizable the moment it is sliced because it shows a ring of holes like a small wheel, and that pattern comes from air channels that help the plant breathe while growing in muddy water. It is a rhizome, an underground stem, which is why it can grow in long sections, and the cross sections look almost like lace or little windows cut into ivory. The signature of lotus root is not only the look, it is the texture, because the flesh stays crunchy even after cooking, more like a crisp apple than a starchy potato, even in simmering broth. I treat that steady crunch as a handoff to bolder flavors, since lotus can stay firm while everything around it softens. When a pot turns silky, it is comforting to have one ingredient still clicking lightly between the teeth, holding the story in place. Bitter melon is defined by its bitterness, and the point of the vegetable is that bold, clean edge, not a hidden sweetness. The bitterness comes from natural plant compounds that many people find intense at first, yet it often feels more balanced after cooking and when it is paired with richer or more savory flavors that can carry it. The bumpy green skin is a simple clue that this fruit was built with defenses, the way many plants protect their seeds with firm texture and strong taste, and the pale inner pith and seeds can concentrate that edge. Once bitterness is accepted as a feature, it becomes less of a shock and more like the pleasant bite of radicchio or endive. From that bold lane, it is easier to understand vegetables that contribute almost no flavor at all, only quiet body, as if they were edible space in the pot. Winter melon is a large pale gourd valued for how mild it is because its job is to add body and clean volume rather than a loud flavor of its own. A mature winter melon can be big enough to feel like carrying a small watermelon, with a thick rind and a soft, pale interior that behaves a little like a gentle sponge. The flesh holds a lot of water, so it can make soups and stews feel fuller while still tasting light, and as it cooks, it can turn softly translucent, almost like extra broth that you can chew. I also like the practical name, because some mature fruits develop a whitish, waxy coating on the rind, and that natural bloom can help the melon store longer by slowing moisture loss. From that calm neutrality, it feels natural to move toward roots chosen less for loud taste and more for comfort and texture. Taro is a starchy root that becomes creamy and satisfying when cooked. But it should not be eaten raw because it contains naturally occurring compounds that can irritate the mouth and throat. Many descriptions compare the raw irritation to a tingling or scratchy feeling, and it comes from tiny crystals in the plant tissue. Thorough cooking helps reduce that effect, so the root becomes comfortable to eat. So it is best treated as a cook-first ingredient. Once cooked, taro has a gentle nutty sweetness and a dense texture that can feel somewhere between potato and chestnut, steady and filling without being heavy. Some varieties show faint lavender or purple flecks that look like quiet marbling in the flesh. I think of taro as comfort that asks for patience, and it leads smoothly to sturdy stem vegetables that hold their shape and keep their bite, even when the dish is saucy. Chinese broccoli, often called gailan, is built around its thick stem, and that is why it tastes and cooks differently from tender leafy greens. It is closely related to broccoli and other brassicas, so the flavor sits in that familiar cabbage and broccoli lane. But the stem is the main event, often as thick as a pencil and pleasantly juicy. The stems are dense and can stay crisp tender after heat, while the dark leaves soften faster and taste more mineral and green. So a single bunch can feel like two textures moving together. I keep that stem first pattern in mind because gailan asks you to pay attention to the sturdy part first, in a way tender spinach never requires. Once you notice that, water-grown greens with hollow stems start to make perfect sense, like the next page of the same book. Water spinach, often called kongkong in Southeast Asia and ong choy in some markets, is a leafy green with hollow stems that can stay surprisingly crisp. Those stems are literally tube-like, a bit like thin drinking straws. And the plant's habit of growing in wet fields and waterways matches that design because the hollow channels help move water efficiently. Because the leaves are tender and the stems are snappy, it can deliver two textures at once: soft greens and bright crunch. And it is often sold in long bunches that look more like a tangle of vines than a tight head of lettuce. I like how it keeps the story moving, because from here, it feels easy to keep traveling through vegetables by noticing which part of the plant is doing the work, and what that part was built to hold. Iceberg lettuce is crisp, mainly because its leaves form a dense, tight head that holds water like a sealed bundle. A typical head can feel surprisingly heavy for its size, and that weight is mostly moisture trapped between many thin layers, the way a damp towel can feel weighty without being starchy. The tight head protects the inner leaves from drying air and bright light, which helps the texture stay firm and the taste stay mild. Since it carries very little bitterness, iceberg acts like a neutral background, letting vinegary, salty, sweet, or creamy flavors take the lead. In a salad bowl, it is often chosen for sound and sensation, that clean crunch, that cool snap, more than for perfume or complexity. If you picture iceberg as a small water reservoir wrapped in pale, paper-thin sheets, its personality becomes easy to predict. Romaine lettuce stays structured because its long leaves are supported by thick ribs that act like flexible beams through the center. A head naturally contains a gradient, darker outer leaves with deeper green flavor and paler inner hearts that are sweeter and more tender, so one bunch can feel like two lettuces. That scaffolding is why romaine resists wilting under dressings longer than softer lettuces and still feels crisp next to warmer ingredients. The ribs carry much of the snap, while the leafy edges offer a softer chew, which makes romaine feel satisfying even in large bites. It is a lettuce that can hold its posture for a while, staying upright in a bowl instead of melting down into ribbons. Once you notice the rib as the backbone, you start tasting structure as much as flavor. Butter lettuce feels delicate because the leaves are thin, soft, and loosely gathered instead of tightly compressed into a hard ball. The texture is silky and tender, and the flavor is gentle enough that a faint sweetness can show up without a sharp edge. Since the leaves are pliable and naturally cupped, they hold fillings comfortably, acting more like a soft wrap than a crisp scoop. That same softness means bruising shows quickly because tender leaf cells break and darken more easily than firm ribs do. When butter lettuce is fresh, it almost folds around a bite, offering comfort more than crunch. It is the kind of leaf that asks for a light touch, not heavy stirring, and it rewards that calm handling. It reminds me that not every salad leaf is trying to snap. Some are built to drape. Radicchio is not a lettuce in the strict sense. It is a chicory, and its deep burgundy color comes from plant pigments that often stay vivid even as temperatures cool. Its defining feature is bitterness, a clean bite that balances rich foods the way acidity can brighten a sauce and make everything feel more awake. On a simple scale, radicchio is usually more bitter than most lettuces, but the intensity varies by variety and season. So some heads taste rounder, while others taste sharper. The leaves are sturdy, which means they keep a satisfying chew instead of collapsing into softness right away. That sturdiness also makes radicchio feel deliberate, like a leaf you add to steer the whole bowl, not just to fill space. Once bitterness is welcomed as a roll, the flavor becomes less of a shock and more like a calm, purposeful edge. Endive is another chicory, and many common forms grow as tight, elongated heads with crisp leaves that feel like refined, bitter crunch. Belgian endive is often pale because it is grown with limited light, which keeps the leaves tender and keeps the bitterness controlled rather than harsh. The shape is practical because the leaves form small scoops, and each leaf can behave like a bite-sized cup that holds other foods neatly without collapsing. Compared with radicchio, endive often tastes cleaner and slightly nutty, with bitterness that arrives quickly and then fades. It is bitterness with a tidy outline, sharp at first, then gone, leaving the mouth clear. Because the leaves are shaped like little canoes, they invite small, neat bites, one at a time. In that way, it feels like a bridge between robust chicories and gentler greens. Cucumbers are famously water-rich, often around 90 to 95% water by weight, which is why they taste cooling and light. Their crunch comes from firm cell walls that keep that water in place until the bite breaks the structure, like a thin container snapping open and releasing a clean splash. Because cucumber flavor is subtle, small differences in peel thickness, seed size, and mild bitterness can change the experience more than you might expect. A cucumber with a large seed cavity can taste more watery and feel softer in the center, while a firmer type stays crisp throughout. Even the sound can change, from a quiet bite to a loud crack, depending on how tightly the cells are holding their water. If it tastes almost like nothing, that is part of the design: clean water with a green outline. When a food is mostly water, texture becomes the main message. Persian cucumbers are smaller and usually have thinner skins than standard slicing cucumbers, which is one reason they are often enjoyed without peeling. They also tend to have smaller, less developed seeds, so the center feels less watery, and the crunch stays more consistent from end to end, with fewer soft pockets. Many are short enough to fit comfortably in one hand, and that compactness often comes with a slightly sweeter, cleaner taste that feels tidy in small pieces. Thinner skins can also mean less bitterness at the edge, so the flavor stays gentle even when the peel is left on. If a large cucumber can feel like a cool drink, a Persian cucumber can feel like a crisp little snack, clear and contained. Microgreens are harvested very early, usually after the first set of true leaves appears, so they sit between sprouts and full-grown plants in both size and intensity. They often taste vivid because a small, tender leaf can hold a lot of aroma compounds relative to its weight, and the fresh texture makes those aromas easy to notice right away. Many microgreens are only an inch or two tall at harvest, yet a pinch can change the smell and flavor of a whole dish, so they are used as accents rather than a big leafy base. They differ from baby greens, which are simply young versions of mature leaves harvested later, with more bulk and usually a softer flavor. They are small, but they can perfume a plate the way a fresh herb does, then vanish into the background. A microgreen is like a bright note, not a chorus, a little lift that fades gently as you keep eating. Sprouts are germinated seeds eaten at the very beginning of growth, often including the tiny stem, the first leaves, and sometimes the root and seed coat that still clings on. Because you are eating the whole starter plant, the flavor can be nutty or beany, and the texture is a mix of crisp stems and soft tips that adds a light snap. Different seeds create different personalities, from mild, juicy mung bean sprouts to sharper radish sprouts. But the shared idea is that you are tasting a seed's first push into life. Sprouts are also more perishable than most mature vegetables, so they are best treated as a use-soon ingredient. A cool storage spot and gentle handling help them stay fresh, and it is worth giving them a quick check for firmness and clean smell before they go into a bowl. They are tiny, but they carry the sense of beginnings, a seed turning into a plant in slow motion. It is a gentle reminder that freshness is a clock, not a feeling. From here, the vegetable story can keep widening, but these small beginnings already show how much texture and timing can change a meal. Romanesco is easy to spot because its surface is made of pointed spirals, and the pattern repeats at smaller and smaller scales like a natural fractal. One head is often about the size of a small cauliflower, yet it can look almost mathematical because each cone is built from tinier cones packed in tight rows. The spirals seem to fold into each other as you look closer, like a slow green staircase. What you are seeing is a dense cluster of unopened flower buds related to broccoli and cauliflower, so the flavor stays mild and a little nutty. The unusual look does not come with an unusual taste, and that is the calming part. Romanesco is mostly a familiar brassica, wearing a more dramatic pattern. Once you know it is a bud vegetable, it cooks and eats like a cousin, not a mystery. And it reminds you that some specialty produce is mainly a new shape wrapped around a known family. Salsify is a long, narrow root, sometimes nicknamed the oyster plant, because many people notice a faint seafood-like aroma after it is cooked. The root is usually closer to a thick carrot than a round potato, with a pale interior and a darker skin. Some varieties are dark enough to be sold as black salsify, which can look like a slim stick pulled from soil. When you cut salsify, a sticky sap can appear, and the cut surface can darken as it meets air, so browning can happen quickly. It helps to treat that color shift as a normal plant reaction, rather than a sign of spoilage. That sap is simply part of the plant, and it can make the cutting board feel a little tacky while the kitchen smells faintly green and sweet. In the pan, salsify tends to taste gentle and earthy with a soft sweetness, and the oyster hint is more of a whisper than a full imitation. The core idea is that it behaves like a quiet bass, rounding out stronger flavors without trying to shout over them. Crostons are small, knobby tubers, sometimes called Chinese artichokes, and they look like little pale shells stacked in rings. Each one is only an inch or two long, so a bowl can hold dozens, and their size makes them feel like a bite-sized ingredient rather than a single vegetable you portion with a knife. That also means they can vanish into the background unless you notice the shape, which is part of their charm. The texture tends to stay crisp and slightly juicy, even after brief cooking, closer to water chestnut than to potato, so the appeal is snap instead of softness. Because the surface is ridged, seasonings and sauces can cling in the grooves. A small handful can add lively bite, then step back again, leaving the rest of the dish to do the talking. Sea beans are not true beans. They are a salt-tolerant coastal plant with thin, green stems that taste naturally briny. They grow in salty places like marshes and shorelines, and they are sometimes sold under names like salicornia or sea asparagus. The stems are only a few inches long and look like tiny jointed twigs, bright green and lightly glossy. The snap comes from a watery interior, yet the natural saltiness brings a clear ocean edge even without added salt, which can make them feel like a vegetable and a seasoning at once. Because they can lose crispness quickly after harvest, sea beans tend to reward freshness and gentle handling. From these briny stems, it feels natural to move to a different kind of tenderness, a leaf that stores water in its own quiet way. Purslane is a succulent green, and its leaves feel thick and smooth because they store water, like a tiny living sponge. The flavor is lightly tangy, sometimes described as lemony, and chopped purslane can seem slightly slippery because it contains natural mucilage that thickens a little as the plant is broken. It is a texture some people love, and others need a moment to understand, and both reactions are normal. The stems can stay crisp, while the leaves feel soft, so a small bunch can offer contrast with very little effort. Some nutrition writers also mention that purslane can contain plant-based omega-3 fats such as ALA, though amounts can vary by variety, growing conditions, and serving size. Even without thinking about nutrients, the calm takeaway is that purslane brings moisture, gentle tang, and a slightly glossy body that can make a salad feel more alive. Mâche, also called corn salad or lamb's lettuce, is known for small, tender leaves that feel soft without being flimsy. The leaves often grow in little rosettes, and a handful can look like a scatter of small spoons rather than big lettuce blades, which makes the portion feel delicate even when the bowl is full. Because it is a cool season green, it often appears when temperatures are mild, and the flavor stays gentle with a faint nutty note rather than sharp bitterness or peppery bite. Its delicacy is also why it bruises easily compared with sturdier lettuces, so it is often handled like a leaf that prefers a lighter touch. From tender rosettes, it is easy to drift toward vegetables where color, not softness, becomes the main clue. Rainbow carrots are not a modern gimmick. They reflect carrot lines that come in purple, yellow, white, and red, as well as orange. The different colors come from different pigments, with orange linked to beta-carotene and purple often linked to anthocyanins. Some carrots even have purple skin with an orange core, which can make a slice look like a small target. Flavor differences are usually subtle, yet some varieties can taste a little earthier or a little sweeter, and the colors can behave differently in cooking. Purple carrots, for example, can sometimes tint the surrounding liquid as pigments loosen. Color becomes a quiet clue to plant diversity, and from there, it is easy to meet a squash, chosen mostly for shape instead of shade. Patty pan squash is a small scalloped squash that looks like a flying saucer, with a flat top and ruffled edges that make it instantly recognizable. It belongs to the same species as many summer squashes, including zucchini, so it shares the same high water, quick softening behavior when heated, and the same mild, clean flavor that takes on whatever it sits beside without demanding attention. Because the shape is wide and shallow, small patty pans can feel naturally portioned. The ruffles add extra surface area that can brown more easily than smooth cylinders. And they also create little curves where oil and seasoning can settle. Once you know the family link, the unusual silhouette stops feeling risky, and it becomes simply another summer squash with a different outline. Sunchokes, also called Jerusalem artichokes, are tubers from a type of sunflower, and they taste mildly sweet and nutty rather than like an artichoke. The tubers can be as small as a thumb or as large as a fist, with a knobby shape that can resemble ginger. The flesh can turn creamy when cooked, while still holding a faint bite at the edges, which is part of their charm. They can hold their shape in slices or soften into a mash, depending on how long they stay in heat, which makes them feel versatile and forgiving. They contain inulin, a type of fiber that some people digest slowly, which is why sunchokes can feel a little heavy for some eaters, even in moderate portions. The simple approach is just to treat them as a vegetable, worth meeting gently, in small amounts first, and then listening to how your body feels. After a tour of these specialty vegetables, it feels natural to return to a practical question: which ones keep well, and what helps them last a little longer? Whole tomatoes usually taste and feel best when they are not refrigerated, because deep chill can dull aroma and change the texture of the flesh. Much of tomato flavor comes from fragrant compounds that are easier to smell and taste at warmer temperatures. And cold can also disturb cell membranes, so the bite can turn slightly mealy instead of juicy. That is why a chilled tomato can seem flat, even when it looked perfect on the counter the day before. If a tomato is already cut or very soft, cold can slow how quickly it breaks down, but many people still prefer to let it warm a little before eating so the aroma returns. Ripeness matters too, since very ripe tomatoes can lose quality quickly at any temperature. Room temperature simply lets their scent stay more noticeable while they wait. The simple habit is to treat whole tomatoes like stone fruit. Keep them out of deep cold when you can, and notice how much brighter they taste when they are not chilled. Carrots stay fresh longer when they are stored without their green tops, because the tops keep pulling moisture and sugars from the root even after harvest. A carrot is a storage organ built to hold water and energy in a dense, crisp body, while the leafy greens are built to spend that stored supply to keep themselves alive. When the tops remain attached, the root can lose firmness faster, and the cut end can turn rubbery sooner, which is why trimmed carrots often keep their snap. You can see the same logic in beets with greens attached, where the leaves stay lively by borrowing from the root below. Once trimmed, carrots do best when they are kept from drying out, since a sheltered container or bag helps preserve that clean crunch. When the tops are removed, the carrot is free to behave like the storage food it is, quietly holding its crispness until you are ready for it. Peppers can be frozen without blanching, and the reason is that their thick skins and sturdy walls tolerate freezing better than many tender vegetables. Freezing will soften the crisp crunch after thawing, because ice crystals disrupt watery cells. But the pepper's sweetness, aroma, and color usually remain useful, especially in cooked dishes. That is why frozen peppers often work well in soups, stews, sauces, and egg dishes, where you want gentle fruitiness more than a raw snap. They are easy to portion later, and a frozen pepper can be sliced or chopped straight into a hot pan as you cook. The key expectation is simple. Freezing preserves flavor and convenience, while the texture shifts from crisp to tender. Winter squash stores best in a cool, dry place with good air circulation, because its hard rind is meant to act like a natural shell that slows moisture loss. Squashes such as butternut, acorn, and kabocha are harvested fully mature, and their skins toughen to protect the flesh and seeds the way a protective coat guards stored grain. When storage stays dry and airy, the rind is less likely to develop soft spots, and the inside stays dense instead of turning watery or drying unevenly. A gentle everyday clue is weight, since a good storage squash feels heavy for its size, which often means the interior still holds moisture and structure. If the rind stays intact, it works like a lid, and small scratches can become the first place where decay begins, so careful handling helps. Because these squashes were built to last on the vine, they often keep patiently off the vine too, as long as the air around them stays calm and dry. Garlic keeps for months when it is stored in a dark, dry, well-ventilated place, because each clove is wrapped in skins that protect it and slow dehydration. Those papery layers are garlic's built-in packaging, and they work best when air can move around the bulb so surface moisture does not linger. If garlic sits in a sealed container or a damp corner, it can soften sooner, while a breathable setting helps the skins stay dry and the cloves stay firm. Temperature matters as well, since warmth can encourage sprouting and strong light can stress the bulb and dry it unevenly. Keeping the bulb whole also helps, because peeled cloves lose their protective wrapping and usually need colder storage to last. When garlic is stored the way it was designed to be stored, it stays steady and reliable, ready to become aromatic only when you cut or crush it. Potatoes and onions often last longer when they are stored apart, because onions give off moisture and strong-smelling compounds that can encourage potatoes to sprout and spoil faster. Potatoes want steady, cool darkness to remain dormant, while onions prefer drier air and plenty of ventilation, so their ideal conditions already pull in different directions. When they share a tight space, the onion's humidity can push potatoes to wake up, and the potato's own moisture can also shorten onion keeping quality. Two baskets, or 2 shelves is often enough to make the difference, because distance reduces the chance that their signals mix. Once they are stored apart, both tend to last longer and behave more predictably when it is time to use them. Leafy greens often last longer when they are kept slightly humid but not wet, which is why wrapping them in a damp towel and placing them in a crisper drawer can slow wilting. Wilting is mostly water loss, a leaf losing pressure in its cells the way a balloon loses firmness as air escapes, and gentle humidity reduces that loss. The towel acts as a buffer, offering moisture without leaving droplets directly on the leaves, which can otherwise speed sliminess in delicate greens. The crisper drawer helps by creating a calmer microclimate, a space where air movement is slower and moisture changes are less dramatic. If any leaves are already wet, letting surface water drain away first keeps the moisture gentle rather than excessive. It is a small adjustment that lets the leaves stay closer to how they lived on the plant, crisp enough to feel alive, yet calm enough to wait. Root vegetables often store well when they are cushioned in clean, dry sand or sawdust in a cool cellar, because that material slows drying and buffers temperature changes. Carrots, beets, parsnips, and turnips are built to sit underground as living storage, so they respond well to stable, cool conditions that mimic soil without the active growth of a garden bed. Sand or sawdust creates an insulating layer around each root, reducing shriveling while still allowing some airflow, and it keeps roots from rubbing directly against each other. This method is old and simple, basically giving roots a quiet artificial earth to rest in, so they lose moisture more slowly. It also works best when the roots start out dry and intact, since damaged skin gives air a shortcut into the flesh. Even if you never use sand at home, the idea is useful. Roots last when they stay cool, sheltered, and protected from drying air. Vegetables, in the end, offer a quiet kind of abundance, because some are meant to be immediate while others are built to wait. A tender leaf gives freshness right away, and a dense root gives comfort weeks later. And both are different answers to the same plant problem: how to store water and energy through changing weather. When you learn a few calm storage habits, you spend less effort fighting wilt and waste, and more time letting ingredients behave the way they were designed to behave. That gentler relationship can make cooking feel simpler, because you are working with the natural strengths of the food instead of against them. And even if you remember only one thing, it can be this: vegetables are patient when you treat them like the plant parts they are, and patience is a very restful ingredient.